Hello and welcome to the SEC Breakdown, our weekly college football show. We'll break down hot topics in the SEC. I'm Blake Topmeyer. I cover the Tennessee Vols for the Knoxville News Sentinel. Let's meet our panel for this week.
I'm Eric Blum from the Columbia Daily Tribune covering the Missouri Tigers.
Pat Dooley, Gainesville Sun.
And I'm Josh Talley from Montgomery Advertiser covering the Auburn Tigers.
Guys, looking back to last week, one of the big developments occurred in the game I was covering between Tennessee and Alabama. Opening kickoff of that game, Alabama's standout wide receiver, Jaylen Waddle, severe ankle injury. Sounds as if he's most likely going to be out for the season. Certainly significant impact for Alabama. They have a lot of weapons, but Jaylen Waddle was one of the top ones. Do you guys think he should have been on the field for kickoffs? There's been a lot of debate about whether you have one of your best players being a return man. And then two, do we think this changes our perspective at all about Alabama being the clear favorite to win the SEC?
It was tragic, to see that happen. And a guy like Jamar Chase is probably going, see, that's what I don't want to do that. But hopefully everything works out for him and he's able to come back and get in the NFL draft, because you're right, he's a special talent. And they do have plenty of weapons still, but he was like here, and then guys are layered below that.
I'm not sure it changes much about who's pegged to be in Atlanta on December 19th. I still think that's going to be Alabama, Georgia. I mean, you look at Devontae Smith, Najee Harris, Mac Jones seems to be doing very well. That offense is going to keep clicking. Just got to play some of the younger guys, I guess. Whether he should have been out there or not, Nick Saban knows way more than I do about college football, I'm sure. If he thought Jaylen Waddle put them in the best spot to win, you can't look back, and you can always play Monday morning kick returner if you want. So I think that he's an absolute threat every time he touches the ball. If you want to score as many points as possible, you put the ball in the hands of the guy that can do it best for you, and that was no doubt Jaylen Waddle. Maybe he was number one or two in the entire conference in terms of just when the ball's in his hands, what he can do. With Terrace Marshall at LSU is just right there with him. So I don't think you should regret that. You just live and learn.
It is terrible that we don't get to watch him anymore. Like, just objectively as reporters and people who like college football, like, he's fun to watch. And Alabama will probably still just be Alabama. They're still going to be good. I think they're still the class of the conference. I don't think this changes any of that. I think where you might see that impact is if we get to the college football playoff, which I think we all assume Alabama's probably going to be in the college football playoff. Now you have one less weapon, maybe your best weapon on offense, against the elite teams in the country that you're not going to see during the regular season, like a Clemson, like Ohio State. I think that's where you might see the difference. But I think through the rest of the SEC schedule, I mean, right now, Alabama doesn't have a ranked opponent left. It might if LSU sneaks back in or if Auburn sneaks back in. But I think Alabama is going to waltz through the rest of the season with or without Waddle. It's a bummer as someone who likes college football to not get to watch that guy play, because he was a touchdown every time he put the ball in his hands threat. And those guys are few and far between, and they're fun to watch when they are here.
You were there in a closed-in press box. Didn't really hear the oohs and ahs when it happened, or maybe you did hear some of that. And I'm sure in the press box itself, there's not a lot that gets the press box buzzing, but that probably did.
It did. And, when it happened, I'm not sure anybody knew, okay, this is a season-ending injury. I mean, it didn't look great. But when it happened, I don't think we all knew in that moment, this guy's done for the season. But then certainly, Pat, what you're saying there, when the reporters in the press box realized he's being basically carried away to the locker room, they didn't even bother with the cart. They just had a guy on each side of him basically carrying him down the tunnel. You thought this is worse than it even seemed live. And then, of course, you see on the TV monitors that they're loading him into an ambulance. And, for someone who covers Tennessee, it was a little bit of deja vu because, last year Tua Tagovailoa had the injury against the Vols, and he left that game and, came back later in the season. But that's when Mac Jones came in there. We got a little taste of him. So, yeah, it was Alabama, when they play Tennessee next season, better be have their best players wrapped in bubble wrap, because it's been
4-leaf clovers.
One other thing I wanted to touch on from last week, guys, and get your quick thoughts. Did we perhaps write off LSU too soon? I mean, all of a sudden, LSU looking just fine now. I know South Carolina, not the best team in the SEC, but they aren't the worst either. And I'd kind of left LSU for dead, I feel like.
I'm very curious to see LSU this week in Auburn. I kind of thought they were done too, especially after the Missouri loss. Like I kind of thought at that point this team probably doesn't have it. But to win with a backup quarterback in South Carolina, not the best team, but not a bad defense, and they put 52 points on them. I'm curious to see how real that is against Auburn, which has not been a great team, but I think has a pretty good defense statistically and slowed Ole Miss down pretty well, especially through the air. The thing that worries me about LSU, it makes me think they might not be real, is that statistically their defense is a trash heap. Like not like bad like a lot of the teams in the SEC are. Like they can't stop anything. They're allowing like 5.5 rush yards per carry the last 2 weeks. They've given up like 26 passing plays of 20 or more yards, which ranks 98th out of 101 teams nationally. Like can't stop a soul. So the offense is playing well. To do that with a backup quarterback and score 52 points is impressive, but can they stop anybody in this league? And right now, I'm not sure yet.
Yeah, I just think that with how Missouri was viewed going into that game and having Missouri score 45 on them was not good after what Missouri did to Kentucky. I think those things kind of balance out a little bit. Missouri underachieving, maybe LSU overachieving, both kind of coming down to the middle here where I think that LSU looks like the kind of shell of the former national champion self that it was going to be, not a completely different team. So I think that when you have Miles Brennan, who hopefully is going to be back and healthy, and you have a Terrace Marshall and you have an Eric Gilbert, I think that they're going to be just fine.
They've got a 2-game hole against Alabama. They can beat Alabama and still not win the conference, the division, and get into the SEC championship game. So they've got to make up 2 games on them. And I don't, like Josh was saying a minute ago, Alabama might not have a ranked team they have to play the rest of the year. And so I do look at that. That loss to Missouri was stunning, I think, for a lot of people. And but, you knew that was going to happen. Will Muschamp cannot stand it when he wins a game. Then he's got to go try to play another one. He tries to kick field goals down 21 on 2 different occasions in the late second and late third quarters. You haven't stopped them all day. But let's kick a field goal and try to cut it to 18. Whoa, that's going to really do it. I was actually yelling at my television at that point.
Nothing fires me up more than like seeing a team kick a field goal to stay down 3 scores. Like you're already down 3 scores. You got to get within 2. Do something. You're not slowing down these offenses in the SEC.
Exactly.
And nothing against kickers. Kickers deserve their love too.
Kickers are great, but if you're down 3 touchdowns, maybe leave them on the sideline for a second. Get within 2.
Yeah, and of course he missed both of them.
Back in full action this week. So let's get to our picks. Georgia at Kentucky. Who's everybody liking this one?
After seeing Missouri beat Kentucky at their own game, and Georgia's better than Missouri, you have to go Georgia with the spread. I think it was right above 2 touchdowns, but that game in Lexington, got to take the Bulldogs.
Kentucky was another really disappointing game last week, the way just how poorly they played after getting that win against Tennessee. And Blake, they just destroyed Tennessee. They dominated the game.
I just don't think Kentucky can score enough. If Georgia scores 20 points, they're going to win by double digits. I think that's a pretty easy pick.
Ole Miss at Vanderbilt, Mississippi State at Alabama. Unless somebody's taking Vanderbilt or Mississippi State here, we're going to keep on rolling. Somebody tell me I'm wrong.
No,
you are not wrong.
Arkansas at Texas A&M. Arkansas, one of the better stories in the SEC, but do they have enough to upset the Aggies?
I think A&M wins close, but Arkansas covers. I think the Aggies are a little too powerful this year.
I'm drinking the Barry Odom Kool-Aid right now. I think Arkansas is playing really good football. Texas A&M, I guess I just refuse to believe in them, even though they're coming off that really big win over Florida. I think Arkansas finally pulls off the upset in this series.
I do too. I'm gonna pick Arkansas, and I'm with you, Josh. I don't believe in Texas A&M yet.
Another game that I think could be pretty close. Maybe it's just a battle of mediocrity. I don't know. But LSU and Auburn. What do you guys like there?
I'm going to take LSU. I just haven't seen Auburn be elite at any one thing. At least LSU proved their offense can be elite when it's clicking. Auburn's defense, I think, is better than what they've showed. I just don't know how they can stop LSU for 60 minutes. I think this might be close, but I'll go LSU.
Eventually, they've got to get a break go against them instead of, eventually the referees not so much the referees, but the guy in the replay booths are actually not going to be getting a soda when there's a big replay, and instead of seeing it. So you got to think Auburn's not going to get every break this year.
I think this game, in the last four between Auburn and LSU, have been one-score games that have gone down to the last 3 minutes. And Auburn has played 3 one-score games in a row that have gone down to the last 3 minutes. So I think this is going to be another one of those games that makes me very stressed near the buzzer, trying to get my story in. I think Auburn can win, but I think it's going to be like potentially a 2019 Iron Bowl level of crazy where a lot of dumb stuff's going to happen, a lot of big plays. I don't think either defense is going to slow each other down, but I think both offenses will score a bunch. So I think I picked Auburn to win, but I think the game goes into the 30s, maybe the 40s.
I agree with you, Josh. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game, but I do like LSU. I just feel like maybe they have a little bit higher ceiling than Auburn does. That's going to bring us to our game of the week, guys. Missouri against Florida. A credit to Missouri that how well they've been playing. This is our game of the week. What do you guys think about this one, and who you take?
It's going to be the most interesting thing is that how well does Florida play on without playing, and being in quarantine for 2 weeks. I'm one who believes that you have to be playing the game of football to be just constantly improving. And no matter how good Kyle Trask or Kyle Pitts is, they didn't practice in an organized fashion for 2 weeks. I still think Florida wins this game, but it's closer than people think. I would take Missouri to cover. I don't see here how Florida can run away with this one. The last time Missouri played in the Swamp was arguably Barry Odom's best game as Missouri's head coach. I think they won 37-13 in Drew Lock's coming out party. Just the one win Barry Odom had against a ranked team in his Mizzou tenure. Maybe his best day, and probably saved his job for at least a year in Columbia. And that was a day where Mizzou looked incredible. And as of right now, the mystique of the Swamp doesn't scare Mizzou. And Eli Drinkwitz admitted he hasn't been there ever. So I think this is a Missouri team that's going to be feeling itself really great and feeling great about itself more so, and I think may even keep this within a touchdown. I think 10 points is kind of right where I see this game ending up.
Yeah, I don't think there is a mystique to the Swamp now. There may be again next year, and there certainly was last year. But right now, the first game, they only played one game there. Think about that. Game at home because of all that's going on. And they had 17,000 available seats, and they didn't even sell it out because they were charging so much for them. So they thought they could make it up on that end. But, I don't know how this team's going to play. I have no idea. Todd Grantham has been very stubborn. He said, look, this is the same defense we were 10th in the country with last year. Same techniques we use, same teaching we do. We're not changing anything. Well, first 3 games, you've been awful on defense. So maybe you want to change one thing, just one little thing. Don't suck. So we'll see how they do. I will say that the reason I will pick Florida, Eric, is because, and we talked about this earlier, is because of Kyle Trask. That I think he'll be fine because the guy is so grounded and so smart and so prepared for every game. I don't think him playing a bad game will not be why Florida could lose this game.
I would pick Florida too. I think Eric's right. I think if this were a more normal season and both these teams had played last week, I think Florida might win a lot bigger. I think the fact that Missouri is coming off a win and Florida has been down for a while might be an equalizer, especially early. But I think Florida's just, especially on offense, is just going to be too much for Mizzou. I think they win easily enough at home.
Yeah, I agree. I really like Kyle Trask. I like Kyle Pitts. I've been, kind of have my top 3 of my Heisman ballot that I shuffle around every week, just thinking if the season ended today. And up until recently, Kyle Pitts was a guy I would have put on there. Now, since I haven't played in a couple of weeks, he'd kind of fallen off, but he's doing this year's pretty impressive. No doubt what Missouri's done the last couple of weeks is put them on the radar, but I still think Florida is one of the best teams in this conference, and I think they'll show it. Good slate of games this week, and we'll be back next week to recap the action.